Happy Saturday, YouTube. Not that it matters much anymore to a lot of us because every day's Saturday. It's kind of sad, but also kind of nice in a way. But it's just too bad of the whole reason why it's all happening. But anyways, today was super great. I just woke up from a nap because it was so nice out today for like a early April day that I was out in the backyard all morning getting like the lawn furniture uncovered and the lawn raked and all the crap from all the trees swept up from around the pool deck and such. And it's just like the sun's kind of gone away a little bit, but it was like I was out in my shorts and t-shirt this morning, and like it was just nice. Like I was actually warm at some points too, so it was just awesome. But I wore myself out. Now that I'm 43, it's like I do half an hour work and I'm like but now I've gotten better at napping too, because my body just leaves me no excuse. I just fall asleep. Whereas before, if I ever tried to nap, I would just lie there thinking about stuff. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. With all of this indoor and at home time, we've been up to a lot more stuff. So I will get into it right away because there's a lot of stuff here, and I'm probably going to use up all the time I have. First up is the fourth book in the Trials of Apollo series, called The Tyrant's Tomb. So as this story starts off, Apollo, or Lester Papadopoulos as we now know him, and Meg are taking the deceased Jason Grace's body back to Camp Jupiter, where they're going to give him a proper burial with all of his comrades there. Their arrival is interrupted by some monsters, but a young legionnaire named Lavinia helps them out and gets them to camp safely. And once they're there, they explain everything that happened with the quest that Apollo's been given and Jason's death and everything. And Raina, Frank, Hazel, all the Camp Jupiter people that we know from previous stories are there and listen and are upset, but everybody's cool with Apollo. And so after Jason is buried, they go about the business of deciphering the end of this prophecy that is leading them on this quest. And they determine that the Tyrant's Tomb that is mentioned in this prophecy is actually quite nearby the camp. So Hazel leads Lavinia, Meg, and Apollo on a journey to this tomb, and they sneak in and they eavesdrop on the people, but they're horrified to find out that Tarkin is revealed to be the ancient Roman king, the last of the Roman kings, named Tarquinius Superbus. He is even worse than Caligula and Commodus and the emperors that are behind this whole thing. So, and he's this deceased old skeleton with this purple magic flowing through him. And he gets wind that they're there, and he poisons Apollo with this stomach wound that seems to spread throughout him. Excuse me. And they barely escape when Hazel brings the roof down on Tarkin and his minions, and they get out of there. Upon getting back to camp, they go over what they heard, what they eavesdropped on Tarkin and his minions, and they figure out that their next mission is to go to Sutro Hill, or Sutro Tower nearby, where at the very last part of the prophecy, where Apollo will confront the soundless god and find a way to summon godly help for him and his charges. So this time it's Raina that leads him and Meg on this quest to Sutro. They ascend this tower, and Apollo finds out that the soundless god is a very minor Egyptian god that he had totally forgotten about, who he had wronged in the past. So this guy's harbored a resentment to Apollo all these years, the millions or thousands of years, whatever it's been. Just thousands, I guess. And so they have to kind of become cool with this god and not defeat him, but get him to see reason. And all through this, Apollo kind of realizes all the wrongs that he's done, and he learns what it's kind of like to be mortal and have bad things happen to him, and he understands being on the receiving end of such things that he's always done to other people. So there's also somebody else there, in a manner of speaking, that he wronged in the past, that's going to help them in this summoning spell that he's going to be able to have at his fingertips afterwards. So upon completing that part of the mission, the three of them head back to Camp Jupiter, but are dismayed to see along the way that the attack from Caligula and Commodus has already commenced, and Camp Jupiter is under siege. So they have to get back. They split up. Apollo goes to perform the summoning spell, hopes it works, and then he gets back into the action. He helps Frank fight off Commodus and Caligula, and in the end, all the fighting leads to the center of Camp Jupiter, to the bookstore, where Tarkin shows himself, and he's after the Sibylline books, where he wants to become the master of prophecy and control kind of the fate of everything. So, and that's where the final battle takes place. And yeah, as usual, Rick Riordan's it's a fast-paced, rollicking adventure with lots of action and humor, and yeah, it's leading us right up to book 5, which will be the last book, where they have just one last person to confront in this whole thing, the Emperor Nero, who Meg was a stepdaughter to this tyrant. So it's going to be it's going to be personal this time. Next up, the new Hellboy movie. Just watched that last week. I thought it was good. It's hard to replace a guy like Ron Perlman, who is so identified with that character and who did such a good job with it. So in this kind of reboot, I thought David Harbour did a really good job, all things considered, because people are going to be pissed off. Just no matter who plays the new Hellboy, they're going to be angry, just the fact that they changed things, right? But I thought he did a great job. It starts with a bit of a cutscene from 517 AD when the fabled Arthur, with his sword Excalibur, and his wizard Merlin, are in the process of stopping... Sorry, I'm still so tired after my nap. There's this witch named Vivian Minway, and she's super powerful, and she's got all these monster minions, and she's about to set off like the end of days, basically. And he stops her at the last minute. The only thing is she can't really be killed, so he basically chops her up into a bunch of different parts, locks them away in these chests, and then has his knights deliver them to separate parts of the kingdom so that they're never reunited again. Fast forward to current times, Hellboy's down in Tijuana, Mexico, looking for an agent from the BPRD that he works for, which is the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense, I guess. And this agent's gone incommunicado for the last little while. Hellboy tracks him down, finds out the guy's been turned into a vampire. And as he's battling him, there's some comments that this agent makes that kind of gets Hellboy thinking about the end of days coming about and his kind of place and everything. And so afterwards, as he's drowning his sorrows in a bar because he has to kill this guy, unfortunately, he's called back to headquarters in Colorado by his adopted father, Trevor, who runs the BPRD, and he's given a new task to head to England and link up with the Osiris Club, who are having a bit of paranormal trouble. And once he's there, he finds out that they're hunting 3 giants that are loose in the land, and he helps, or is set to help them bring them down. Only problem is these people from the Osiris Club turn on Hellboy and start beating him down, but he is saved by the giants. But after the giants finish feasting on the humans and Hellboy wakes up, then he has to deal with the giants. So after he does that, he's knocked unconscious again, and he's saved by this young woman named Alice. And as Hellboy comes to in her apartment, he realizes that this Alice is actually a medium, and as a baby, he helped her in this kind of monster kidnapping scheme that she got caught up in as an infant. So she joins him on his quest, and soon a team that Trevor sends shows up at her flat, and they kind of lay down the scenario that they bring him into the loop on this Vivian Minway situation, and that they tell him that these chests that were locked away all those years ago by King Arthur are being dug up and reclaimed by forces unknown. So the last remaining box that has yet to be discovered is actually at the Osiris Club that he was just betrayed by. So they head back there, and they find this weird, like, man boar guy going crazy on the place and trying to find it, and eventually he escapes and is able to revive Minway, and she is thankful and about to set about the end of days again. So it's basically this race in the end for Hellboy and Alice, and then the leader of this squad that showed up at her flat named Ben, who has his own secrets to keep. They have to go after Minway and stop her from reaching her full power. There's a ceremony she has to go under to reach full power, and if she does, pretty much all hope is probably lost. But if Hellboy's on the case, chances are it's going to be okay. But along the way, he also has to battle his own inner demons about, is he like, what is his true nature? He's fighting his true nature by being a good guy, or is he actually a good guy? Like, he's as some of the truths of his upbringing and his discovery as a young Hellboy, he has to deal with the facts, kind of like of what am I, and why are people trusting me, or should people not trust me, that sort of thing. So lots of action, lots of cool. My favorite part of this movie were the monsters. When some of the monsters get set loose at the end of it, they're like so like it's something out of a Tim Burton movie almost. Like, they're so bizarre and scary and crazy that it was really the effects on those monsters were really kind of a joy to watch. Next up, I've been showing my son some of my classic 80s movies that I loved as a kid growing up, and so far we're only a couple in, but there's probably going to be more. First up, this is like probably in my top 5 movies of all time. Maximum Overdrive. I'm not sure when this was from, but it was from like the mid 80s, 1986. It says here. The story, it takes place in Wilmington, North Carolina, and the story is that Earth passes through the tail of this comet named Rhea M or something like that, and for 8 days, whatever's in this comet's kind of atmosphere, it affects the Earth in strange ways. Machinery starts coming alive and turning on the humans. So you got lawnmowers cutting people down. At a Little League game, you got this kid getting run over by a steamroller. The vending machine is firing cans of pop at people and braining them. Like, it's just, everything's going crazy. So as we see everybody's individual stories unfolding, they are all kind of pushed to this truck stop on the highway called the Dixie Boy. At the Dixie Boy, we have our main cast, where Emilio Estevez is kind of the one star in this movie, and he plays Billy, who's like a young cook there. And there's some of the other workers there factor into it. But then you've got all these other people coming in from their various stories into the Dixie Boy. And it's basically this survival thing. They're cooped up in this truck stop while all of these big rigs are kind of, circling the wagons sort of thing. And then these other vehicles show up, and they find out eventually that there is some sort of consciousness behind these machines coming alive. And they find a way to communicate with them. And it's just, you have to really see it to kind of get a good feel for this movie, but it is so well done. It didn't get good ratings, which is beyond me. It's a Stephen King story, and in the entire soundtrack is all AC/DC. So there are so many things going for it. I love Stephen King books. AC/DC is like one of my favorite bands of all time, and I love trucks, especially dirty, rugged 80s big rigs. Like this movie to me, and it was violent too. There's lots of blood, there's lots of crazy deaths, and there's lots of funny parts too that I'm not sure if they're meant to be funny. Some of them are, but some of them probably aren't either. But it's just this peach gem masterpiece of a movie that most people, when I mention it to them, they've never even seen it. They don't even know it exists as a story. So it's just you really have to see it, and it's just the survival story of once they're all cooped up at this Dixie Boy, on how they plan on getting out of it and surviving until this nightmare is over. So it is so much fun, and I could literally watch it every day and never get sick of it. Next up, another one of my favorite movies of all time, The Lost Boys. So there's lots of people in this movie that actor-wise, if you like the 80s. Like, there's Kiefer Sutherland, Jason Patric, both of the Coreys. You'll recognize Edward Herrmann from Gilmore Girls, the dad, like the grandpa. He's in it. And then the mom of the two boys, you'll recognize her too. She's been in lots of stuff. She's the grandma in Life in Pieces, that show. So basically this woman and her two sons, Lucy and Michael and Sam, the younger brother's Sam, the older brother's Michael. She is moving to a place called Santa Carla, California, to move in with her dad, their grandpa, because she has just gone through a messy divorce where she is basically broke, and she's looking for a new job, and she just needs somewhere to stay so they can get back on their feet. So their grandpa's like a crazy old coot, and he's got like, his house is more like an old cottage sort of thing. It's all wood. It's got like taxidermied heads hanging on the walls and that sort of stuff. And as they move in, Michael, who's like, I'm guessing late in high school, I think he's like a high age teenager, whereas Sam's a few years younger. He's not impressed, and so him and Sam go out every night. They go down to there's this like circus carnival area, boardwalk sort of thing, where all the kids tend to go. And as they're there one night, Michael gets the hots for this girl named Star, who is kind of elusive, and won't really let him kind of catch up with her. In the meantime, Sam's at this comic book store, and these two guys, Edgar and Allan, Edgar Allan Poe. I just got that now. Not that it probably means that, but Sam's at this comic book store that these two brothers' parents run, Edgar and Allan, and they start talking. They're really weird with him, and Sam's like, what are you guys on, right? And they're giving him all these vampire comics, like Destroy All Vampires and stuff like that. So he's like, and they're almost talking like vampires are real in a way, right? So Sam's just like, whatever. The next night, I think it is, Michael finally catches up with this Star girl. She's receptive to going out to get something to eat with him. As she's hopping on the back of his dirt bike, this band of hooligans that we've seen throughout the start of the movie, led by Kiefer Sutherland, pull up and are like, "Where are you going, Star?" And one of them's Bill from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Alex Winter, whatever is that, something like that. There's lots of people in this movie. And so eventually Michael gets pulled into this gang of hooligans as kind of an unwilling participant, and he's not sure what these guys are doing because obviously there's some sort of tension about the girl. But as they pull him in, they get him to do all these crazy things, and they keep mentioning, become one of us, Michael. And the one night when they're eating, they give him this bottle of wine, and Star warns him that it's actually blood. He drinks it anyways, and it turns out it is blood. They are vampires, and now he's on his way to becoming a vampire. So as Michael comes to this realization, and Sam is horrified that his brother's becoming a vampire, he contacts the Frog brothers, Edgar and Allan, and they're like, "You gotta kill him." He's like, "I'm not killing my brother." And then they go, "Well, if you kill the head vampire, all half vampires will revert to their normal human state." So then they kind of, as the movie progresses, and Michael figures out what's going on to him, and Sam comes up with a plan with the Frog brothers. It's kind of this perfect 80s ending. Is this 80s? Or maybe it's early 90s. I thought it was 80s. But 87, yeah. So it's this classic 80s, like, action montage, where they get set up for the final battle, and then it's the calm before the storm, and then the final battle ensues, and it's got that 80s music and the way of kind of doing the clips together. It's such a cool ending. It's one of my favorite endings of all time in any kind of movie, let alone vampire movies, which are some of my favorite. So they just set up inside Grandpa's old house, and which is super creepy to begin with, but add a bunch of vampires to the mix, and yeah, even creepier, right? So yeah, it's just this fantastic action horror movie with lots of funny parts as well, and lots of great actors that just make it even more outstanding. So if you haven't seen Lost Boys or Maximum Overdrive, there's two for your list right there. Last up are a few video games. We recently finished NHL 11, which, if you've played EA Sports in the NHL hockey series, is the best hockey simulator of all time. Hands down. There's some other really good ones out there, but they rule the roost. And if you've played an NHL game, especially a more recent one, you'll know exactly what NHL 11 is like. It's a hockey simulator. It's got a bunch of different modes: career mode, season mode, shootout mode. You can create your own players, create your own teams. There's a 3-on-3 edition of it as well. And so what we usually do is we just play through a season. If there's some other new modes that grab our interest, we might do that. I like to do the World Cup mode if they have those every once in a while, and do an international tournament and win with Canada. But usually we just do a season with the Leafs, and that's enough hockey to see us through each game, unless there's something really cool added to it. So in this one, we actually played through our season with the Leafs, and we're playing Arizona in the finals just earlier or late last week. And after the second game, we were up 2-0. We swept every series up to that point. and we got a player back from injury, and I went to put him back into the lineup and then confirmed it. And then the thing, for some reason, simulated ahead the rest of the series, and we lost. We lost 4 in a row to lose the Stanley Cup. So after playing all those games and getting to that point and the game friggin' up like that, it really pissed me off. But we know we would have won anyway. So, but it's just, we don't get the trophy or whatever, and we don't get the satisfaction of seeing us lift the cup. But anyways, it's what I like about NHL 11 specifically is that on a lot of the newer games, you can really, once you get good at it, like, it's really hard to lose. Like, you dummy teams like 11-1 and stuff like that. This game is always close, and you lose your fair share. And it's not like crazy high scoring too. Like, a lot of the games are like 2-1 or 4-2. Like, they're more normal kind of NHL scores. It's more of an actual simulation in terms of realism in the scores and stuff like that. And it's harder to hit people, and some of the animations on the goalies when they get scrambly in the net, and they can put it into their own net sometimes. Like, this one had a lot of realism to it, even more than some of the later ones that came after it, because they're always making changes, a lot of times just little ones, because at this point, how can this game evolve anymore, really, right? But NHL 11, I think, is one of the most realistic versions of the NHL hockey series that I've ever played. Next up, Ben 10, Protector of Earth. We've never watched the Ben 10 cartoon, but basically he's this kid who finds this alien it's like a watch that goes around him. It's called the Omnitrix, and it allows him to turn into all these different types of aliens, these different alien modes, and he uses it to fight evil. And I'm not sure how many different enemies there are, but in this game in particular, this is the first video game in the Ben 10 franchise, and in it you're fighting this guy named Vilgax. And as the game starts off, you and your cousin and your grandpa are camping in his RV by the Grand Canyon, when one night when they're asleep, this weird mechanical fly comes down and sucks some of the juice out of Ben's Omnitrix. And later that night, as the sun is rising, something crashes into the earth nearby in the Grand Canyon, and Ben and his family go to check it out, and then the story unfolds from there. And as the game rolls along, you kind of regain some of the alien forms that were lost when this mechanical bug sucked the juice out of the Omnitrix. And as the game rolls along, you find out who's responsible for it all, and of course in the end you have to fight him. So it's a really good game. This, for the first one, because we've played some other Ben 10 games that came after this. One of them was really good, one of them was terrible. So this one, considering this is where this whole series started, I'm really pleased with it. It's rudimentary in the graphics, like they could have used a lot more polish, and sometimes the camera angles, depending on where you are, can be a lot wonky, but that's very few and far between, and the game controls really well. So it's just it's not the greatest game, but it's also it's not bad by any stretch. It's actually a pretty solid game, and worth the play, and especially to see kind of where the Ben 10 series kind of started, because now we're going to kind of have a basis on where it began as we play through the rest of them, because we do have some more to play. Last up, just finished this one earlier today. The Lego Movie 2, the video game. In this Lego game, this was much different than most of the other ones we've played. We've never played Lego Worlds before, but this is more like that from what I'm led to believe. It's not like most Lego games. You have this hub or hub areas, and you access all the levels from them and play through the actual story levels. In this game, it's more like Lego Worlds, where it's kind of more of an open roaming sort of thing, and as you go through these open worlds, you kind of play through story elements of the game. And so you do that in this one. It's the story of the movie, basically, where all of Emmett's friends are captured by this strange alien being, and he builds a ship to go after them, and meets this guy named Rex along the way, who is like his alter ego from another dimension sort of thing, and he has to find out what's happened to his friends, where they've been taken, and once he finds them, get them back from this kind of what they consider an evil queen. I dropped it. Who is trying to kidnap all his friends and marry Batman, sort of thing. So you do play through that story. Not as in as much detail as maybe some of the other past Lego games, where it's more story driven, but you do touch on all those elements throughout the game. But mostly you're just left to explore all the worlds, find all the items, and play the story kind of at your leisure within each world, sort of thing. So I liked it. It was fun, but I'm not a big open world explorer guy because I never know what to do. I just get bored of it. I'm like, well, give me something to do. Like, I just don't want to go off and build things and whatever because I'm old. I don't have the imagination anymore. I want you to give me a challenge to perform, right? So, but the game looked great. It played great. It was lots of fun. It's just I like the other format a lot better. So I'm hoping this isn't the way future Lego games are all going. We're going to start another Lego game soon, so I hope it's more like the old ones rather than this. I hope this isn't a permanent shift that they're doing. So, anyways, I'm probably running out of time. So that was the 7 things I had to report on today, and we'll get started on more right away.